What do you think about when I say stress? You get stressed out, right? People get stressed out. Everyday life, jobs, family, commitments. It puts stress on you. Deer are no different. Deer feel stress from everything, and some of the things are pretty common and pretty obvious. They feel stress from weather. Winter weather stresses them out. Hot summer weather stresses them out. Insects stress them out. Predators, wolves, coyotes, bears, stress them out. Something's trying to kill them. But what's the number one stress of a white-tailed deer? None of those things. The number one stress of a white-tailed deer are other white-tailed deer. And that's called social stress. In the whitetail herd, social stress is a poorly understood topic among even researchers. But what we know through scientific research is that social stress of deer living on the landscape is the thing that causes them the most stress. How are they going to live on that habitat? It has to do with population dynamics. It has to do with sex ratios of the deer herd. And it has to deal with, number one, I'll let you guess, number one, the female segment of the whitetail society is what runs the shop, so to speak. How whitetail does live on the landscape dictates everything throughout the course of the year. And that's the thing you need to understand. Think outside of the hunting season when you think of social stress among deer. And how does this affect deer across their entire lives? Whitetail does live on the landscape in maternally linked groups. That's why you see 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15 antlerless deer at one time in a field. They live together in groups. And the oldest does, the mature does, get to pick, through pecking order, how they live on that landscape. They run the show, as I said. So does are going to pick and choose those spots based off of fawning needs, mostly through spring and summer. So that fawning territory is going to be number one. And second is going to be nutritional needs of the herd. That drives everything. That dictates how bucks live on the landscape. Bucks are still going to live on the landscape. Does are going to allow them to live on the landscape. But how they intermingle is how it's all going to come together. So what can you do about it? Yeah, that's great to know. Science has taught us that social stress is a big stressing point on deer and how they live and how they move and how they interact with other deer. Here's where it gets interesting. How we, as hunters, manage the whitetail population will dictate how many deer we see. Not just numbers, but how they're living on that landscape. This is where it gets a little complicated. When you shatter the age structure of a female segment of a whitetail herd, that affects everything. It affects how deer disperse, where they disperse, which deer are most dominant, which deer are living where. And that's what we've done over the past 15 to 20 years through really heavy antlerless harvests throughout the country. They're needed. Antlerless harvests are always going to be needed. But in some places, in a lot of places, we have the density down enough to where we can now allow some of these does to live to older age groups. What you see a lot across the country is a 2.5-year-old doe is a matriarch on the landscape. Now think about that for a second. I hate equating it to people, but that's like letting the teenagers run the business. When you have a 2.5-year-old doe and she's the matriarch, and then her yearling doe from last year is second in line, you can see how that works. There's this constant jockeying of position among those females for pecking order. And it's almost chaos in the deer's world because nothing is set. It's like having a subdivision of brand new homes, you know, and neighbors first getting along with each other. It takes a while, and it's the same thing with deer. So how does it affect you as a hunter? The more you know about deer behavior and how they operate like that, the better hunter you're going to be. In as simply as managing your doe harvest. So if I have a small property, am I going to worry about it? No. If I have 20 acres or 30 acres, no. If I'm hunting public land, do I worry about it? No, because any deer is a good deer on public land. Trust me, I grew up hunting 20 years on public land. But now, if you're a land manager and you have more property and you have a big cooperative of people around you trying to manage deer, then you can formulate plans on not only how many does we take, but what age structure of the does do we take. And believe me, when you get it that finely tuned, you can really experience much better buck hunting, because you're going to be able to manage that property to the whitetail's needs. And when you do that, everything else is going to fall into place. So one thing we know is that the female society runs the show in all aspects of our lives, but especially in deer. And how bucks interact is going to be affected. Is this going to really affect a mature buck's home range? No. Is it going to affect his core range? Probably not. But it's going to affect all those younger insubordinate deer. It's going to affect them greatly, because they are going to be getting pushed out by the female society, and they have to find their little spot within that home range. That's how it works in the whitetail society. Like I said, it gets complicated, but for you as a hunter, all you have to do is pay attention to deer behavior, and you're going to be much better off when hunting season comes around.
So why stabilizers for hunting bows? Well, I've got a short buckshot here on this bow, and that's my personal preference. This is a short 4-inch stabilizer, and for me, that's what I like. I like to keep it shorter because I swing through the brush, or if I'm in a tree stand or ground blind, I don't like too much out in front of my bow. This one also gives me plenty of balance. When you hold it out, that stabilizer, what it does is it helps your bow balance. So even if I loosen my grip, you can see that the bow stays very balanced. Stabilizer will help with that as well. Keeps your wrist sling in place, so it's important for those reasons. The other reason is when you take your shot. If you're shooting, there's some energy left in your bow, there's vibration. So if you put a good stabilizer out there on the end, that's going to absorb that vibration, it's going to make the shot more comfortable, and it's going to take up some of that noise, so you'll make a quieter shot as well. This here's the Easton buckshot. We make that in several different lengths, and really the length is something that's a personal preference. So like I said before, I like the shorter ones. Some guys will like to go out to 12 inches on their hunting stabilizer. Get into your pro shop, they can help you get fitted. You can try out a couple and see what feels right for you. Again, stabilizers, they're important for hunting, so get into your pro shop and check one out.